think, at least for the moment, in terms of this presentation. So I'm very happy to take any questions that have come up in the chat, or any questions that come up now from anyone who's here. And Alexis can, I hope, do the honours by releasing the microphone there.
Yes.
Or reading some questions from the chat, if there are any.
Okay, so if you wish to ask your questions via microphone using your voice, you can just raise your hand and we can enable you to speak. Or if you have any comments or questions you wish to write, you just use the chat box or the questions box, and you'll be able to do it there. Just give it a minute to see if anybody has any questions. Yes. Mario is saying hello. Hello, Mario. How are you?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. We've got more than 100 here from
Yes.
many countries.
Yes. Yes.
Really good.
And we have a hand. We're facing a huge economic challenge. Veronica says that we are facing a huge economic challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Veronica asks, how can we help in coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. Down to the most important question. And I just touch on a couple of things that I said here. First of all, take care of yourself, because unless you take care of yourself, you won't be the best coach you can be. And if you're not the best coach you can be, you'll be more limited in the amount of help and guidance that you can give to other people. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be, listen to your clients, and they will be anxious and afraid and upset and worried at these challenges. And maybe you can help them with some of the concepts here in terms of goal, your relationship to your goals. What do you want? The difference between goal and outcome. What do you want and what's actually going to happen? The fact that we have very limited control, and the fact that so much of the anxiety is imaginary, in the sense of we put ourselves in imagined futures, imagined very bad futures, and then we feel anxious about. And when that happens, I would always come back to okay, here I am right now. What is my next action step? What am I going to do here right now? What's important to me here right now that I can get on with? Because, going to these futures, yeah, anything can happen. We just don't know. We don't know how this story is coming out. All we can do is be a creator of our own story. And we're a creator of our own story by taking action. This is what coaching is about, isn't it? We can talk and talk and talk, but in the end, the client has to take action. And I think, in this very simplest terms, that's what I would be doing. I'd be listening, of course. I would be reframing and challenging some of the thinking, perhaps, if the clients are getting anxious about things that haven't happened. And I would focus right down to, okay, what do you want? What's important to you right now? And now, what's our action step that's going to come out of this? And it's amazing. When people take action, a lot of anxiety goes, because they feel powerful. That's the thing about anxiety. We talk about being paralyzed with fear. We don't move. The moment you move, the moment you feel, yeah, I can do something, however small, you break free from that. So that would be my answer to that one. Any other questions there, Alexis? I think you can probably read them easier than me.
There are a couple more questions. I don't know if you have access to them, but I can read them for you. We have a comment from Alina. She says that it's very interesting to remember that in order to help others, we as coaches have to be efficient and we have to try to be well physically, mentally, and emotionally. She says she enjoyed a lot the analogies and the tips. Veronica says thanks. Ahmed says that a coach needs to take care of himself in order to deliver. Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And Giancarlo asks, how can we get the mindfulness for meditation?
Um, well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but there are plenty of mindfulness kind of recordings that you can listen to. John Kabat-Zinn is the person to go to here. I mean, he was the guy. He's a American doctor actually, and over 30 years ago, he started what he called mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, I think it is. Which was very much in the medical sphere of helping people in chronic pain and ill people to be able to cope much better. So that's where it started. It's not some kind of pie in the sky type thing. So there's plenty of material on that. John Kabat-Zinn, mindfulness-based stress reduction would be a start. It depends. There's lots and lots of other books and resources on mindfulness and meditation. In meditation, in terms of sitting still and observing your thoughts, is a practice that's been going on for 2,000 years or more. It's probably the oldest psychological practice of anything. So there's got to be something to it. So I would say, research, find something that suits you and do it. That's the thing. If it doesn't suit you, don't do it, right? Find something that does, because there's plenty of ways to go about this. It's much better to find something that works for you than to kind of dutifully sit for 20 minutes fidgeting and looking at your watch and wondering how quickly is this going to end so I can go and do something else. So find something that works for you and do it.
Great. We have another question from Angelica. She says, how do you reconcile a 5-year plan with the present for a coachee that has lost his business?
That has lost his business?
Yes, that has lost his business.
I'm not. Okay, so there's a coachee that's lost their business.
No, with a coachee that has lost his business.
Yeah, a coachee that's lost their business. So then that would be the first order to address. That coachee has lost their business. They are going to be in mourning for a start. They're going to be in grief. They're going to be sad. They're going to be angry. They're going to be upset and anxious. All of these emotions are going to come out. That's the first place, because you can't go to 5-year plans with that sort of turmoil going on. So really you need to deal with that first. You need to listen and listen and listen. And once the coachee has told you all about this, then maybe you can start to think about, okay, so there's that. Now what, right now, small action step can you start that's going to make you feel better right now? That would be the start. I wouldn't start with 5-year action plans. You want a small step that starts, and then out of that, once they feel better and more resourceful, then you can start thinking about, okay, well, now where do we go from here? What needs to happen now that you feel better and more able to focus? What needs to happen to start to get things back in order? And it's a big step, but one step at a time.
Giancarlo also asks, what would be the best coaching program for personal development, including family, profession, and job?
It's a rather big question. Um, oh my God, I don't know where to start. Um, Best kind of implies that there's one that is the best, better than any others. I don't know. I think you need to what we're missing here is the client. Uh, Personal development, family, profession, job. Well, you know, where would I start? I'd start with those three practices. You can't go wrong. You really can't go wrong with good sleep, good exercise, and mindfulness. It's going to affect everything you do. And there aren't so many practices that will affect every domain that there is. Emotional domain, economic domain, professional domain, health domain, physical domain, spiritual domain. It affects all of those domains. So it's like those of you that are familiar with the Wheel of Life. There are many different domains that we engage in, personal development, job, career, health, relationships, all of these. And it's fine to focus on one and to build one up. But if you want to really get the most for your money, you'll find a leverage point. And a leverage point is the action that you can take that will have the greatest amount of positive effect on the greatest number of areas. So what I would propose is that certainly those three practices, there's one or two more, but I would start with those three. They're so basic. That is absolutely leverage points for all of those domains.
All right, then Aurora also asks if you can clarify a little bit more about the idea about the difference between goals and outcomes.
Sure, a goal is what you want. So everybody sets goals, of course. It's just natural. It's the way that we live. We can't help it. We will want something. It's fine. And these goals can be very trivial. They can be very short term. They can be medium term. They can be long term. They can involve all sorts of things. So we're always doing that. And there's plenty of tools, as I said, smart tools that will allow you to specify that goal as carefully and exactly as you can. And that's fine. So you have your goal, okay. But then where's the guarantee that you're actually going to get what you want? There isn't one. So I'm simply using the word outcome for what happens, what comes out of your action steps to try and get the goal that you want. Okay, it maybe you don't get it. Maybe you fail. Okay, and remember the old saying from NLP: "There's no failure, only feedback." But remember, if that's true, there's no success, only feedback. You can't have it one way and not the other. So it's like the basic point is what you get is not necessarily what you want. So in terms of what you want, you've got to be quite maybe anti-fragile, again, is the best way to put it. You've got to be able to take feedback, to change, to move, to flow in the creation as you move forward towards what you want. And that goal of what you want may need to flow and change as well. Or maybe you just crash and you don't get it. And well, that's it. That can happen too. But that's a basic point. What you want is not necessarily what you get. So make sure that you, in the process of moving from your present state to your desired state, that process is informed by values, and you enjoy that process, because you may not end up in exactly your desired state. You may end up somewhere else.
Excellent. We have a couple more questions. Um, I know you just explained this question when I was asking you about the how to reconcile a 5-year plan for a person who's lost his business. That question was repeated by several people. So it was, yes, more or less phrased in different ways. Some people have future plans that were interrupted. How can we help people stop looking after them?
Yeah,
And how
yeah.
can we help?
Just let me address that. I mean, I understand that there are many people who have lost their work, sometimes totally, uh, and I think in any coaching of that, like I said, you've got to listen. You've got to listen carefully there first. Secondly, there will be no doubt practical steps that they can take to either mitigate or to try to aim to create something else. And, you know, as a coach, we absolutely do that. And thirdly, there's the sort of things that we were talking about here in terms of, you know, 3 practices that are going to help you, whether you've got a thriving business or whether you've just lost your business. And certain mental models that are going to make things a lot worse for you if you dwell on them. So I think that, you know, as coaches, we can do all of this. We listen carefully, we empathize, we are with that person. Secondly, we address and challenge, if necessary, any mental models that are making things worse for them, and we support and help any mental models that can help them. We give them practices that can help them as much as possible in general, and we help them in terms of making an action plan that will realistically and specifically address their very real concerns about economic and financial livelihood. But without a specific example, it's very difficult to say anything else beside those 3 things. But that would be what I would be thinking of. If anybody came to me as a client in that situation, those would be the 3 things that I would be doing in that order.
Right. A couple of people are asking about more examples or more explanation about the mental model, challenging the illusion of control, and examples of uncontrolled mental model.
Okay. The short answer is come along to the distance learning course on the neuroscience of beliefs, because this is where we deal with it in detail about goals, outcomes, the way that the brain works in terms of our mental models with the neurotransmitter dopamine, how we learn, and how this means that we cannot be satisfied in those terms, and how it works as a mental model in terms of control or not to have control. Just you know, as an example, it's, at least to me, it's really, really clear that we don't have control. the last couple of months has certainly showed me that however much I've carefully planned what I've been doing, things can happen that will totally upend it. And when that happens, it's no good clinging for me to cling to, oh no, now I can't do this training, you know. This backdrop here is a beach in Bali, Indonesia. And I was due to go there to do a training in end of March, beginning of April. And that didn't happen. So then, you know, I have to think, okay, right, well, that didn't happen. You know, that the outcome didn't match the goal. I certainly had the goal to go there, and that all seemed to be set up. Didn't happen. Okay, so what am I going to do now? How am I going to adjust to that? How am I going to adjust to the fact that that income from that trip and that training isn't going to happen. I'm going to have to do something else. I'm not in control. So again, I do the best I can in terms of adjusting to that and taking on other things, and always doing the best I can in the light of what I know, knowing that it's quite possible that things can change tomorrow and something else will happen. In which case, I hope that I will be able to, again, adjust and do the best I can in the changed situation. And I'm not trying to set up an example here of how great I am. I'm sure that as we all did when these things happened, there were days when we were going, oh my God, what the hell is happening here? What can I do? Yes. And then that can pass. And then you think, okay, what will I do now, here? Because as I think it was Byron Katie said, don't argue with reality. You'll lose 100% of the time. You can't argue with it. You can't argue with a virus.